I'm working on 2 projects right now that would cost $50,000 to do what I've done up until this point. I've done it in under 3 weeks. We're in a window of time that it makes me think about early 2000s, the .com boom. And it was the first wave of digital entrepreneurs that really caught a wave. There's never been a time where you can be at the leading edge of technology and not be working at a big company. Subconsciously, you're not unleashing your creative mind enough because your execution, 90% of it can be automated. Everything you think can't be automated right now can be. I say since 2012, I've been operating in the online business world and always leveraging the tech that's available. And, you know, just email automations was so cool. But I mean, I started doing like email automations in 2009, 2010. And with a brick and mortar business, you know, we were maximizing our digital footprint then, and then going solely online in 2012, 2013. And using all the CRM tools and the email marketing and the web tools. And now, and I took a step away from any type of business that required me to run a team. You know, the last few years, I just really stopped being interested in managing people. And it's actually been a real gift because, you know, I've just been doing mostly consulting one-on-one, and 80% of my time is, you know, just doing research, really. Researching, reading, watching YouTube videos. And then AI came along a few years ago. That's been really exciting. And then it felt like, is it really going to get to where we want it to be anytime soon? And then all these agents just got deployed. Claude Cowork came out. Manus became something that was actually usable. All these tools became action-oriented versus just informational and conversational. And I am now executing on, I've always been like the ideas/strategy guy. And since not having a team, and I haven't had like a highly technical team. I had a highly technical team from like 2013 to 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went into like a more low tech type of situation, 2018 to 2022. And then went just consulting, which is like, my tech was just Zoom. And then now I go, oh, I can execute on everything that I've ever wanted to do. It requires like a team of engineers to do. And strategies are sound, the ideas are great, but now I can come up with an idea. I can, with the use of AI, come up with and test a strategy. And then I can deploy something in a very short order. And the minimum viable product that I was able to deploy a year ago versus right now is dramatically different. I can actually ship a product within a few days if I wanted to. Whereas before, like the hardest part of launching a business right now, the most time-consuming part right now is really doing the market research and talking to real, because you have to talk to real people. You can do market research. All your market research should start with some AI tools. Gemini deep research is great. Manus broad research is great. But dude, then the market research, like I'm working on a company in the real estate investing space right now. And I'm running the company. I stepped in to be CEO. This is the first time actually, the week before the opportunity came up, I remember telling my wife that I probably I think my CEO days are behind me. I've been enjoying the consulting. It's easy.
That's what made it.
I'm getting, I depending on the type of business it is, sometimes I get a little bit of equity here and there, and everything kind of like it stacks up, and it's easy, and I get to stay in my lane. And then all these tools came out, and then somebody comes to me with a business and says, "Hey, I've got all the operational stuff figured out. I just don't know what to do with it."
Yeah.
And I go, "Oh, I've been in real estate investing before, so I do know the business." And I go, "Oh, all right. Well, I'll just run this. Are you cool with that?" And they go, "Yeah, I'm cool with that." The and then I'm also rebuilding my wife's business from from I'm treating it like I'm building it from scratch,
Nice.
not building on top of anything. We know the offer is good. And dude, the things I'm able to execute on, like normally, like a year ago, if I would have had to go to an agency that specialized in building out go high level or active campaign or some of these softwares. They'd have to specialize in this. We'd have to hire a design team. We'd have to I'd have a lot of copywriting to do. I'd have a lot of work to do, and I'd have a lot to delegate and a lot to pay for. And it would take a few months to deploy something if we were willing to dump like $50,000 into a project. Like I'm working on 2 projects right now that would cost $50,000 to do what I've done up until this point, and I've done it in under 3 weeks. And
Probably fractions of the cost too.
oh, I think my own time is invested, but the thing is every time I do a process, it happens faster, cleaner, and better. And so I'm enjoying the process, even though I'm doing, quote unquote work. But as I'm learning about the tools, I'm one of those people that as I learn how the tools work, I get even better ideas.
Yeah.
The tools give me the ideas by using them. And so, yeah, man, it's incredible. And, I'm regularly reminded that I'm in this bubble. I have to like peek out and talk to some other people, doing market research on different companies I'm working with, really. And I'm talking to other business owners. So working in the real estate investing space, I'm talking to real estate investors. And it just really clues me into the fact that they might be using ChatGPT to have conversations or to help them like think through something. But that's as far as they're taking it. And it's so much more advanced than that now. And so, yeah, I'm recognizing we're in a window of time that it makes me think about 2000, to the early 2000s, the .com boom. And that was like the first wave of digital entrepreneurs that really caught a wave. And one of my mentors was part of that wave. I know several guys that were part of that wave.
Mark Cuban.
Oh yeah, I don't know much about his history.
Yeah, he made his money through the .com bubble, and really, if you look at a lot of entrepreneurs, and I think I've mentioned this before of what I've noticed, and I picked up on it reading Will Smith's book, Will, of how a lot of people who are successful were early on in a trend and they rode it up. Like Will made his money rapping, totally. But like I wouldn't look at him as the best rapper in history, even though I still will play some getting jiggy with it here and there. But he started off obsessed with hip hop. He was one of the best in his school to do it. He rode that wave as the genre became popular. And that's what gave him the exposure to then get a show called Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which if anyone watches the first season or knows about the show, he had no business acting. He just said, yeah, I can do that. And then he learned along the way. And then from doing the show came opportunities to do a movie. And then at some point, his manager, his best friend, had a come to Jesus moment. It's like, dude, what the hell are we doing? And then he says, I think I want to be the top grossing actor of all time. He's like, okay, then let's just do that. And then he found his focus, but he rode that wave moving up. And then you see the same example where look at Elon Musk, for example, with PayPal. Sure, the dude is brilliant. I don't want to take that away from him, but you also get into a market that is what we talk about blue blue ocean strategy. The sharks aren't there eating up all the corpse yet. It's not full of blood. So you have the opportunity to differentiate and also ride the wave, be good early on before it gets flooded with competition, which just makes it harder.
Yeah, Elon Musk is someone I really love to talk about, and probably not in the way that people think, but for a long time, I mean, I was saying this in the 10, 15 years ago. I remember people would be talking about politics, and they'd be talking about who's running for president or this or that. And I would go, dude, do you really think the president matters that much? Do you think the president actually impacts the economy that much? And then I would ask people, who do you think has had the biggest impact on the economy in the last 20 years? And they're all thinking about politicians. I go, no, man, it's Elon Musk and the whole PayPal crew, dude. And they helped create the wave in which a lot of the people I followed early in my career and my mentors, PayPal made it easy to do business online. And that is what created this huge boom with e-commerce. And so Elon had a much bigger impact on the economy than any president or any law or anything like that. And I tell people that because I get a little frustrated with people when they get so wrapped up in politics. And they're like, voting matters and this and that. I'm like, sure, you're one out of 100 million people. It matters to that degree. Or you could stop paying attention to all that bullshit and you could really focus in on how are you going to leverage what's available to you as an individual in order to make the difference that you want to make.
Mm-hmm.
And that's every moment that someone thinks about politics is a moment that they could be spending that same energy on something productive. And that's why I don't really pay much attention to it. Now, if you're a 9-to-5 and you're just like, I'm going to get my pension one day and this and that, politics might matter to you. But if you are somebody who is a believer in creating your own destiny, don't pay attention to that shit. Focus in on what's in front of you right now. And what's in front of us right now is AI is changing the entire landscape. The people who are going to win right now are the entrepreneurs, the people who have the agency and the belief in themselves and see the tools and say exactly what you're saying. Will Smith had no idea what the hell he was doing as an actor, but he said he would do it. He was self-educated. In hip hop, and I'm sure he had mentors and this and that, but there was no academic path for that. And so what we have in front of us right now, I spend several hours every week consuming content on YouTube from guys that look like they're in their probably late 20s, early 30s. So I watched a video. This kid must have been 22 years old this morning. I was watching and I was learning from him on how to connect Claude to go high level in a way that, because I had created a connection, but it broke. And so I was learning from this kid and I'm going, you just got to be willing to watch 3 or 4 hours of YouTube videos a week, do it on your lunch break, whatever, and then go apply it to whatever it is that you're working on. And so much of the stuff I've done with AI hasn't, I either found a better way to do it or whatever. Some people would look at it and go, oh, you just wasted your time creating this whole workflow that broke on you. I'm like, well, I learned so much. And then I went and, created it for this other business. I'm working on a few different businesses. So I'm getting a ton of use case experience right now. But the reality is no one knows how to do any of this stuff.
Yeah.
It's literally being created. And not only is it being created, but people are learning how to do it. And then within 24 hours, they're going on YouTube to show you how they did it. there's never been a time where you can be at the leading edge of technology and not be working at a big company.
Yeah, man, there's so much there that I want to dive into, and just because it's top of mind and what you just finished on, where you are is what I'm seeing as I've jumped down the rabbit hole in AI. And I've gone through more of a diagnostic approach with my latest offer and what I'm working on for audits for companies. I've seen, and through research, I'm understanding that a lot of companies for the last 2 years who experimented with AI did it wrong, and they have to undo the workflow. And for a lot of people who just put their hands up and they say, well, that's it, it doesn't work. And it's like, no, that's not the case. And I know you listen to the All In podcast, a recent episode, the guy was talking about, if you had pocket aces and you bet big in poker and you lost the hand and you walk away saying, I should never bet in poker with pocket aces again, that'd be a false conclusion because that's a very strong hand, right? You bet appropriately, but you lose. That happens sometimes. VCs lose 90% of the time. They make their money on the 10%. But the reality is, what you just broke down is the reps and the repetition it takes to actually get the proper use case scenario for these agentic AI agents that get deployed within businesses, which unfortunately a lot of businesses aren't doing the work to do, and they're not doing the diagnostic initially. And what I'm seeing online is a lot of, I say slop for the AI fans out there. It's a lot of pessimism around AI of people who says the people making money with AI are selling AI. And I don't think that's the case. I think there are people like yourself and like the ones on YouTube who are sharing their use cases, who are actually applying it. And when they figure it out, that's where the real work comes into play. But so many people are just on the surface that they don't get to the depth of what actually yields the fruit. Does that track?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a couple things here. One is most business owners have already filled their work schedule, their 60-hour work week, with things that have to be done. Most business owners are operators when they're not true owners. If they were a true owner, they would be working very little, and they would be working the amount of work they would be doing is it would be on the business, not in the business. I think anyone who's read like E-Myth
Yep.
Revisited or anything like that is familiar with that term. And so most of them don't know how to find the time to go do the research. And then they just don't even know where to start. And so they were just talking about this on the All In podcast recently, where they were talking about 99% of the businesses out there using AI are actually in a experimental phase where they're playing around. The ones that are implementing are playing around with it, but it hasn't necessarily resulted in more revenue that's associated with the use of AI. And then eventually you're going to move from the experimentation phase to the like full deployment phase.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there's like two ways to implement AI in your business right now. Is you could go into the workflows that already exist, and you can try to figure out how to implement AI for one specific use case, and then slowly remove the human element from that particular workflow. That's one way to do it. The other way is what I'm doing for one business, for my wife's business. What she has is she has a website, she has a whole workflow, she has everything that she's built. Her site and all of her automations and everything that's happening is about 2 years old. I built that stuff about 2 years ago, and it's all obsolete. It's probably better than what most people's workflows look like, but now what I'm doing is I'm not going in and upgrading one thing at a time for her. What I said is, hey, babe, I want you to just keep operating your business as it is off the old stuff. I'm going to be over here in my office, and I'm going to rebuild the entire brand. There's been some changes in the business recently too, beyond just the technical aspects. The offer has changed a little bit. And that's another thing is like people's offers are also changing because they have the power of AI. Yeah, yeah, you are. And I am too. Like I was doing a lot of consulting and coaching where I was advising, but now I'm like advising on specific build and the use of AI. And also I'm also, doing some first time in my consulting career, I'm actually doing a little bit of work where I'm actually building something for the clients. And so the, the aperture has opened up quite a bit, but I'm building something that's parallel to her existing system. And then in the next month, we're basically just going to start filtering all new people into this other business. It's basically a whole other business. I mean, the Stripe account is the same. That's about the only, and the bank account is the same. Everything else is different. And then we'll migrate everyone who's existing in that old, in the parallel, and we're going to migrate them over. And then in about a month, there'll be nobody on the old system. And I'm just going to hit the delete button on most of that. And then we've moved over to this new system and then everything's firing and working. So that's one way to do it. And to me, that's my preferred way to do it, but it's going to require somebody, and her business is not that complex, but it's going to take somebody and I'm working on 3 at a time, so I could probably do it faster if it was the only thing I was working on. But yeah, in a matter of, if you're starting at 0, I don't know anything about AI, and you could invest your time full time for a month, maybe like 4 to 6 weeks, and then you could catch up. That's possible. But you'd have to this is every waking moment type of thing. I'm going to sleep thinking about strategy. I'm waking up with strategy ideas, how I could be utilizing AI. But the rule I'm operating from right now is I'm willing to spend an extra, I'm doubling the amount of time I spend in my office with the commitment of asking myself, everything I do has to be done by AI, even if it takes me longer to do it. Because after I do it once, I get a little faster, get a little faster, get a little faster, figuring out this new tool. Oh, I see there's a connection here I didn't see here before. Technology is the connections that are available in Claude. There's more connections available to make inside of there, like technical connections being made every day. And so as I'm doing that, what I'm watching this snowball occur, and I go, oh, this is pretty soon. My vision for myself is I can run several companies with one partner in each company where they're the expert in their field and I'm the expert on business models, marketing strategy, and tech automations.
Mm-hmm.
And I can basically DJ, I see myself as a business DJ, boom, 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 boom. Sometimes they even have a chance to work together. It's crazy.
A little bit of a mashup, man. Everything you're saying actually gives me some confidence around the transition I made with my offer because my approach, I was the time management and productivity guy. I have my whole perfect week and I built out my framework, assess, adjust, apply. And now I'm going ham in an offer that is mainly focused on AI auditing. And what I mean by AI auditing, it's more of a diagnostic of the business to identify the biggest bottleneck and where AI could be properly injected in the business. Because as I said earlier, how many businesses are doing it wrong? They're just echoing the problems that they have already. Their business model might not be that sound. Their workflows might not be sound. So it's identifying that first before I implement the business. And I've loved it, pick that apart if we wanted to, but where I came to that conclusion with this approach was for anyone who's listening who finds themselves with the full-time job or with the full-time focus, speaking to you, Josh, and recognizing the opportunity that is AI, just like you mentioned, I saw this trend with the .com. I saw this trend even smaller with the rise of e-commerce stores, pickleball and everything. And I decided I'm not going to miss this train. I might not have full-time 40 hours a week for the next month to give to AI, but what I can do is alter the offer that I have already, get familiar with AI. I've dedicated a number of hours. Now just like you, the waking hours, the sleeping hours, I'm going to sleep on Reddit, waking up on YouTube, X, and just learning and getting the newsletters, learning enough about AI where I'm still at the tip of the iceberg, but I'm underwater a little bit and I could see how big this bad boy is. And my approach is being that liaison between what you mentioned before. I love that you said 60-hour work weeks, because that's literally the verbiage I use. You're working 60 hours a week to maintain your business. You're working in it, not on it. I could be the liaison between that CEO, between that operator who hears about AI and they're like, I'm using Chat GPT and this, the other thing. Is like, no. Let me come in. Let me use specific questions transcribed and understand the SOPs within your business and diagnose this bad boy to find out where AI will fit and let you know exactly the capabilities that AI can actually produce. And then from there, it's just producing the engineers that can inject that agentic AI, or the problem might be fixing the business model first before putting AI in it.
I found that twice this week. So this is the first time in, man, it's probably maybe 8 or 9 years that I open up my calendar where people can book calls with me on the weekend. And so I had 2 calls on the weekend and on Sunday with 2 different companies, and both were curious about AI. I had done a masterclass a while back on AI, and I had about 30 something people show up. And everyone stuck around. So it was interesting. And I had no idea what the result of doing that masterclass was going to be. I was like, okay, come check out this school community I have. But sometimes if you feel inspired to do something, just jump in and do it. And that's what I did. And this resulted in a couple calls that were booked the other day. And both of them, they had business model issues, or they wanted AI information. And then I started asking them questions, and they just didn't really have the answers to the questions I had. And these were like pre-AI type of questions. You don't need AI to answer these questions. And so I think what we're going to see is a lot of businesses are going to, this is a really common thing, is people will focus in on the tool. It's happening in coaching too. It's like, oh, I've got this really good coaching method. It's like, and I've had to tell coaches for years, no one cares about your method. They care about the result you're going to get them. I think a lot of times, because AI is so prominent in the news right now, that business owners hear about it and go, oh, that's the solution to my problem. And so they get on the call with me, who, being an AI expert, which is kind of crazy to say. And the only reason I'm an AI expert is not because I've been in it for a long time, but just because I've had the time to dedicate to it in a very short period of time. Because nobody's, anyone who's an expert in AI no one's been in it longer than 3 years. I can promise you that. And so, there's some handful of academics have been working on it for decades, but that's a different story. But as far as like business application goes, and I look at both these guys and I go, A, you got to get your numbers together. B, was it one guy was considering an M&A, a merger or acquisition, and he thought that this company fit in this way, but part of this was the knowledge I have of technology. I was like, no, this is not how. You're overvaluing this acquisition. This person actually fits here. What you're creating is so much bigger than that. I had somebody else who was doing just one sliver of a business. And I go, you've got to offer something you have to solve the second problem they have after you solve their first problem.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a ads manager. And he's running an ads management company. And I go, you got to what's the problem they have after they get a lead? Oh, they're not whatever. So I won't give away the whole kit and caboodle of that consulting call, but I I looked at it, and in both cases, I go, even if AI didn't exist right now, I'd be giving you all the same advice. Like, we got to dial in this business model before we can even talk about the use of AI. And because AI exists, you have the opportunity to expand your business model. But as far as me digging into exactly how it's going to work, we got to consider we have to change your offer. We have to change your partnerships. There's a lot of things that are fundamentally going to change. And so this is why I was saying the entrepreneur is going to win here, is because there's a lot of businesses out there that are not being run by entrepreneurs. And the entrepreneurs got so much power in their hands, and it's only going to grow, that they actually don't need a lot of these other roles. So labor is becoming incredibly cheap due to agents. And so they can have an idea, they can create a strategy, and they can execute. So what most businesses need right now is somebody who is aware enough about how powerful AI is, so that someone like myself or yourself can come in and go, well, you're actually thinking too small, because you're still thinking from the frame that this is hard to build. And subconsciously, you're not unleashing your creative mind enough, and you're not thinking strategically, because you're so conditioned to focus on execution, when the execution, 90% of it can be automated. And I'm not saying I can like snap my fingers and 90% of your business is automated today, but just realize that everything you think can't be automated right now can be. So if you can start moving yourself in that frame of mind, you can expand your vision and your strategy. And the people who do that first and start moving in that direction and leveraging the tools, they're, fast forward a year or two from now, they're going to win. And the people who don't move into that position right now, they're probably not going to be in business. I mean, that's just the reality of it.
I'm curious as to, because I'm seeing the example in real time, and this is also referencing to an episode we did previously when you mentioned way back with your CrossFit gym trying to show other people email automation. They said how it felt inauthentic, and their identity resisted that. Even speaking to a few business owners in my circle as I'm gathering my portfolio and offering the AI audits, the conversations are very revealing with the ignorance to what AI is capable of. I know one of the biggest barriers of entry is having to educate your audience, right? And educate the people who you try to sell to. Now, I think there's no shortage of business owners who are aware of AI and curious about what it could do for their business. But in this particular conversation, um, they have their business buttoned up pretty well. They're in the healthcare industry, and they're, well, how much do you know about the healthcare industry? And I'm like, I'm not talking about the healthcare industry. I'm talking about AI. They're like, no, we've worked with consultants before, and they work strictly with these offices, and they know healthcare and I'm explaining to him, I'm like, but you do know, like, all the data that consultancy company uses is now able to be acquired through AI and applied to your business model, and then usher in the workflows that's needed for success. And then you can strategically inject the proper agents to carry out said workflows. And and I could see it did not compute, right? Pun intended. As if they're like, "Ah, but they work with these offices. They know the industry."
Yeah.
So I'm curious as to if you've experienced that, or what you would say to anyone listening who might still have that rigidness in their thinking around AI, how does it know my industry? How could it help? And maybe my, as you mentioned before, my business is simply too complex to automate.
You know, I'm working like in a broad range, and introduced to. I was at a wedding on Saturday. And I was hanging out with a guy who's a dentist. He's a specialist, and he's like one of the best at what he does. And we got talking about AI, and I could tell he had a little bit of that resistance at the beginning of the conversation. By the end of the conversation, he's like, "Oh God, I gotta like figure this out." because we were able to talk about what AI can do. And he was definitely like, well, it probably can't do this, this, and this. I'm like, it can definitely do that. And I can learn what I need to know about a business or an industry in about an afternoon. Because of the AI tools at my fingertips. I become very good at doing research using AI, and you don't have to be a genius to get really good at doing. I was good at doing research previously, but doing research now is just, there's a few tools. I ask some simple questions, and I spend a lot of time reading.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I've read more in the last like 3 years than I have in like my entire life prior to that.
Yeah.
3 years I read more than I did in 40 years. 'Cause someone asked me what I did a couple weeks ago at a party. I was like, mostly just read and write, like, and they go, oh, like,
It's great.
what are you writing? I'm like, prompts. I'm writing prompts, and I'm reading output, And
Speaking of research, really quick, I didn't want to interrupt you, but for anyone listening,
yeah, you do. Yeah, you want to interrupt?
yeah, well,
Just do it.
this is the thought process, because you mentioned researching, and what I've been playing with NotebookLM and Gemini is the deep research. The quality of your answers are based on the quality of your questions. And if you are someone who asks very intriguing, very interesting and insightful questions, and you do proper deep research and you get enough sources and you add that to NotebookLM, it will give you a beautiful polished slide deck. And there's your webinar right there. You can have a YouTube channel of just what I researched this week through that. And I would be fascinated if you had those insightful questions. So that's just, once you said that, it made me think of that, because that's how I've been playing with AI recently, of learning things. Is I like to be a visual learner as well. So I'll read it, and then I'm like, all right, let's build a slide deck with this and give me the nuts and bolts.
Yeah, I mean, twice this month, I was one was with a client I've had with a while, and one was for a new business partner. In both cases, well, the client I've had for a while, we were discussing updating the marketing strategy, and within about an hour after a call with him, I was able to create a slide deck. An hour later, I had a slide deck explaining the new marketing strategy. I had done the research using AI. I had used Manus to create the slide deck. And I sent the slide. I didn't even present it to him. I just sent him the slide deck. And he nerded out on that for a couple of weeks and implemented I didn't need to give him, because I also sent him the document to read, which is, 20 pages. And then I gave him a 20 slide deck, and he totally didn't read the 20 pages, and he read the slide deck, but he was able to glean what he needed from that. The other thing was, I had a business owner come to me and say, hey, I want to know, by the way, it's my sister, which if you would have asked me if I'd go in business with a family member prior to a month ago, I would have been like, I don't know which family member you're talking about, but probably not. And the idea of going in business with family doesn't sound like a good idea to me. But she brings to me like her whole operation and how her business model and how she's selling it. And I go, oh, just stop talking about this to anybody. I'll be back in a day or two. I'm going to come back. I've got something. I'm going to sleep on this. I'm going to present something. It took me 48 hours to completely understand the industry. And it's an industry I'd played in before, which is the real estate investing. I got a better understanding of it, got a better understanding of her product, asked her for access to the product so I could use my AI tools to crawl through it and understand it better. And then I formulated an MVP, a minimum viable product, or, a minimum offer. This is an example of an offer on I don't think you should be doing it the way you're doing it. This is the business model I see that's possible, that's going to serve the client better and create a more lucrative business on top of that. And yeah, I created a 15 slide deck. And I presented it to her and she goes, okay, I'm in. I want to do this. I go, okay, I'm going to run the business. She said, okay. And so both of those things would have required months of research. And then it would have been a painstaking process of being in Canva, putting together some slides. It wouldn't have been as good. I'm smart, but if I couple my intelligence with this very intelligent AI, I'm intelligent enough to use the AI well. When I couple my intelligence with the AI intelligence, then we come up with something that's just superior. And, my wife's kind of joking around. She's like, you have officially merged. I think she went away for a few days and came home, and I had been in my cave doing my thing, and I was giving her the update, and she goes, you've actually merged with AI. You actually did the thing that we talked about for a long time. You weren't sure if you were going to do it. I'm like, oh, this is just, I'm getting major upgrades because I have a consistent thinking partner that's highly intelligent, especially with Opus 4.6, the most intelligent model out there for these types of things. And I can work through some pretty complex things with it. And it's incredible. Yeah. So from conversation to me giving a slide deck to somebody, it could be an hour, it could be 48 hours, depending on the scope of what we're talking about. But you're right. You could do that in NotebookLM. There's other tools that I prefer, but dude, it's wild.
So I'm curious as to your current stack, right? Because you mentioned Opus, the different models that folks use for different use cases, and I've discovered different use cases for different models. I'm really liking Gemini for more of my general use case. Claude is where I'm leaning into more of the agentic work of implementing into my computer, giving it tasks to actually do things. So that's my latest task to jump into. I've done more of the research and everything. I've been watching the YouTube videos, and I see how you can create these workflows and really these agents that can deploy work for you. So now the next step for me is the implementation and the actual doing process of things, as my offer has come to a conclusion. But between my focus right now, Grok is more of just current events, latest for what's happening, research. Gemini, more of my general use case, and also deep research. Claude is more of the writing and a little bit of the research, while I'm starting to play with Manus as well. What have you found most advantageous for your use cases and how you're applying them? As again, you don't have to give the whole recipe to the cake, but maybe just let us know how the icing is made.
I'll give it to you because it's gonna change. Like it's not. And the thing is, I've logged a lot of time using the tools, so it's how you're using them that is where it becomes really special. It's kind of like back in the day, people would go online and get Rich Froning, who won the CrossFit Games 4 times. I'm going to do his workout. I'm like, all right, cool. Go do his workout. Good luck. He's been a lifetime athlete. Those work for him. But I think anybody who uses the stack I'm about to illustrate is going to benefit from it greatly. But again, it's time under tension. It's repetition that's going to get you there. But I start everything in Grok. And I start in Grok because it's a fast researcher. So it does crawl the web really well. It's a fast researcher. It's very intelligent. I'm using And I pay for everything, by the way. I don't screw around with free anything, because it's just, you're actually not going to get the total use case. Like, you're not going to get a fair assessment of any model by using the free version.
Like
So
driving a Ferrari with the governor on. Yeah, you're not going to get the full thing.
yeah, like it's just, yeah, you're gonna take the Ferrari out of the parking lot or what? And so I use I'm looking at it right now. 4.20. Elon's hilarious. It's 420. Is the model that's being used, and so when you ask a question, it deploys 4 agents, and they go out and find information, and then they like basically argue with each other to basically come up with what it is they're going to present you. So in the original large language models that people are used to, it's basically a single agent going out and finding the information and giving you its best guess. But now, one of the things that Grok did that was pretty special was it says, hey, we're going to deploy 4 agents. They're going to argue about it and come back. So I start with Grok, one, because it is pretty good enough at research. But the real reason I use it is because it has X as its data set, formerly Twitter, as its data set. And where do all the engineers in the world and business owners live? Like the top business owners, the top engineers, they're on X. And what are they doing on X? One of the things they're doing is they're sharing prompt engineering. So that is, they're sharing how to create prompts that are going to get you the best results. Like you were saying previously, it's you're really like limited by the quality of the question that you can ask or the quality of the command that you can give. And so I might do some preliminary research with Grok to kind of get my head straight. I do use a journal. I write things out, and then I go to Grok and I identify. I have it ask. I always end the prompt with like, "Ask me more clarifying questions," right? And I go in with the end goal in mind. So I think a lot of people, they engage with AI with, say, I want to replace how I'm currently doing something, when they should really be asking themselves, is the way I'm doing it even the best way to do it? So I had this conversation with one of my clients, and they were doing something in a certain way in their business, and they're like, can AI do this? And I go, why are you doing it that way? Well, this is how I started doing it because of this, this, and this. I go, I bet there's a cleaner way to do this. I bet there's a faster way to do this. And then we talked to Grok about it, and he said, yeah, that's a faster, better way to do it. And then we pulled their customers as, would you prefer for this particular thing to be delivered in this way or this way? And the poll was like 90% do it the new way that we're looking at. So we simplified how the delivery. But then I go back and forth. I go, hey, I want to create a prompt that's going to help me achieve this goal. And I tell Grok that we're going to bring the prompt into Claude. And that's important because different models and different companies respond to the prompts differently. So one of the things that Claude loves that other LLMs don't necessarily love is it loves it wants prompts that are about twice as long. So you want to inject as much context as possible. And so what I do is I then have Grok, I go back and forth with Grok until we come up with the perfect prompt. And then I bring that prompt over to Claude, and I'm using Opus 4.6 mostly. There's Sonnet 4.6, which is good for everyday tasks. Like, it's probably the best one on the market for everyday tasks and conversations. But if you're getting into heavy strategy or you're getting into complex workflows, that's where you want Opus. It takes longer to think. You're going to get charged more to use it, but I'm of the opinion of just buy the Pro or Max plan and get the full horsepower, right? And so I bring it over to Claude, and then what we do there is usually what I'm doing with Grok is it's all about formulating a plan to execute. So another mistake people do is they start engaging with an agent. And I burned up a lot of tokens early in my using agents. I use a lot about Manus agents because Manus, Manus, which Meta purchased a couple months ago, is an excellent agentic platform, which means it'll go out and do things on your behalf, and it'll generate things, and it'll actually go do work for you. But if you give it a prompt, it'll kind of just take off and start doing things. So the quality of your prompt is going to dictate the quality of the work it's completing. So it used to be the quality of your prompt dictated the quality of the response you got, but now it's actually going out and doing things. And to hire agents to go out and do things on your behalf does get expensive. It does start some credits. Listen, yeah, you burn through some credits. So what I do is the prompt I'm bringing with Grok is let's create a plan. It might be a market research document or a market requirements document. It might be a business requirements document. It might be a PRD, a product requirements document. And I'm mentioning all these different types of documents we're creating because this is the type of things that are generated in the software world and really the engineering world. And so the one key piece to being successful with AI right now is to start thinking like an engineer. And so not a coder. So coders, when they're first getting started, they got an idea and they just start coding. And then, it's buggy and it breaks and it's not, and then they have to go back and they have to do 10 times the work. And then after someone codes for a while, they start thinking more like an engineer and they go, you know what? I need to spend more time planning. I need to plan myself better. And so I started naturally doing this. And then I'm talking to, I have friends that are engineers, by trade. They've been tech engineers for, their entire careers. And talking to them really has helped me think more clearly using AI. But one of the things I did is go to Grok in order to create the prompt to create the plan. So it's like planning to plan.
Mm-hmm.
And then I bring the planning prompt to Claude, and then we create a document that's got the plan, right? And so in my wife's business, as an example, because I'm building the parallel business next to it, is this is the goal of the business, overarching goal of the business. This is how we're currently getting there. This is our offer. And I had already done a lot of work on like what the pricing should be. There was a lot of research that went on before this, but I went to Claude with this master prompt I had done with Grok, and I drop it in, and then it creates this 32-page document on how the website should be built, how everything should be built out and go high level, what all the marketing funnel should look like, how we can integrate WordPress with the high level backend. And then after that, I went and we did a bunch of work to create the brand guide, because I just tried to like rip the brand off of what we had done previously. And Claude was able to identify where the brand wasn't quite clean, like visually. One is we had to clean up the messaging. Two, we had to clean up the visuals. And part of what it was is we went in initially with a brand, and then over time, things were created that were kind of on brand, but not quite on brand. But maybe the colors were a little off. Maybe they weren't as complimentary as we originally thought. A lot of it was just going off of like how we felt when we saw it. And there are a lot of, like, one of the things I do when looking at brand visuals is I in Grok, I'm talking to it about how to basically be one of the best marketers in the, whoever's in charge of creating visual brands, like, and it'll go out online, it'll find out all the advice, and it'll look at like different, like, complementary colors that work with different brands and this and that. And I go, this is our core colors. And then it builds this whole brand thing around. And then we also assign an archetype to the brand. So the archetype of my wife's business is the midwife. And so there's certain types of colors that incite a feeling in the people who are engaging with the product and the website that's going to make them feel like they're engaging with a midwife.
Yeah.
Whereas before, the brand colors were more like a caretaker, which is not the energy we want the person to feel. So it gets we're getting really granular here.
Nuanced, yeah.
Very nuanced. This stuff's, and it's gonna matter more than ever in the future, because the more people that have this type of utility at their fingertips, there's just gonna be more competition. So you got to be dialed in. You can't just be like, whatever, it's been working. It's like, well, it's been working, but it doesn't guarantee it's going to work. So we then create this. We have the brand guide and we have all this. And Claude's useful for this because I can have a folder. I'm using Claude Cowork a lot. And we're working off a folder, and we're building this folder on my computer.
Mm-hmm.
So Cowork syncs into your computer, and then you also have projects in there, which we can talk about later. But we're building out this whole understanding of what the business is. We have the plan, and then we want to start executing. So what I did was I created an MCP, which I had to do this manually, which is not, I don't necessarily recommend, because I did break it a couple times. And then some of it is just having the confidence that if you break something on the back end, that you can fix it. And I mean, I was working IT in high school, so I kind of have, I learned early on that almost anything you back shit up information wise, data wise, and then you can play around and break just about anything. But
the oh shit moment, you can back up.
Yeah, I don't really like. I broke something this morning or yesterday, and it took me 3-4 hours to fix it, and I had to get on like tech support, and I'm actually waiting on a high level right now to like open a door in the firewall for me, because some type of connector I want to do is not normal, and they were like, we don't really like do that. I'm like, you guys better get used to doing this, because I'm not
first one or the last one.
Yeah, like we've had a few people that wanted to be able to do this. I'm like, dude, this is not going to stop. This is only going to pick up from here. Y'all better get together, because if you don't, I'm going to go somewhere else. And then all of a sudden, I got a senior tech on the call, and now we're working it out. And then I was working with Claude on what the solution was, so I could tell them what the solution was. But essentially, through using an MCP connection with high level, and Claude can take over your browser. So I was able to have Claude build out my entire, which is the most complex backend build I've ever done. And 15 years of internet marketing, I would have not taken on this build that I have Claude doing for me previously, because it would have been too hard. It would have been too hard, taking too long, and things would break, and it'd be hard to fix, and it'd be hard to figure out where it was. Not a problem now. It took care of about 90% of the build, and it needed about 10% intervention for manual stuff being done. Now, it does take an understanding of how systems work to be able to work with this, but you'll learn along the way. And so I had to build out high level, and then I started having it build out the WordPress, the front end website, because I need to build the back end before I build the front end, because the front end has to plug into the back end at many different points. I'm using some webhook integrations. I'm using some things that I would normally shy away from. I'm willing to engage with now. And so this is where Manus comes in. And so you could just have Claude build out your website, and it would look pretty good. It would be, it would follow the branding guidelines. It would get the colors right. It would get some elements right. But I want it to be absolutely beautiful. And so I go to Grok, and then we have a conversation about creating a prompt to create, an absolutely beautiful website that's built to convert, that's along these brand guidelines, yada, yada, yada. And then I'm able to go to Manus with the same brand guide that Claude has, and Manus. And then what I do is I have Manus build out the website, each page individually. So every thread is a different page. In my build document, And I have another document that's being updated constantly, like with where we're at. Like, if we skip this step, we know we're going to come back to it. So you want to be tracking your work for something this complex along the way. And then what I do is I go to Manus and I create an absolutely beautiful site. And the thing is, it's going to create the HTML, but then there's also certain graphics that are going to have to be uploaded in the into WordPress, into the media library, so it can pull those images and use those as like to lay over some of the other stuff. And so I work with Manus, and I command it when I'm starting is let's dial this in visually, and then you're going to produce a HTML file I can share back with Claude, and you're going to produce the images separately so that I can take those images and put them in the library. And so what I do is I then take it back to Claude. I take the HTML, and then I take the URL links to the library, and I give it all to Claude, and it makes sure that the HTML is clean, that the links to the media files make sense. And I use the Claude Opus 4.6 because it's the most intelligent for this type of thing. And it basically ensures that Manus didn't make any mistakes. One thing for people to know is Manus is not, it is a front-end agentic program. It is using Claude, it's using Gemini, it's using chat, it's using things in the background for all of its processing. And that's why, you're burning tokens like you are. But then Claude is able to take over my browser, but also I have an MCP connector, and this is between Claude and WordPress, and it's able to inject fully done web pages for me with all the connections back in the high level, with the beautiful images, with the beautiful HTML. And I don't have to go into WordPress and like click the Elementor things and like do this and this and this. I'm literally just like, this is just uploading. And there was one set of pages that were really difficult to upload. I did have to do some manual uploading, which took me about 30 seconds. But for the most part, it's able to just basically generate all of it for me. And so I asked the question. There's a funny thing that happened so that was like my workflow for building out my wife's business. Is all the automations we're going to need is already built? No, I built out the foundation. But now if I want to go make changes, we already have like the entire build document. We have a documentation about everything that was conducted the whole way through. So we want to make a change. We have all the context about what we built so that when we add something, we can double check to make sure that it's in alignment with what we already did. It's not going to break some type of integration that we had. It'll double check all that before we do it, because in the past, I would make changes on a system, and then next thing you know, something else breaks that we didn't even realize was related. It seemed unrelated, but it was actually related. And then, then it's, days of troubleshooting. But, that's pretty much the workflow. And I posted on Facebook, who here is using Claude to build out their Go High level? And there was a decent amount of comments, and then people were following. And I didn't tell people I was building it. I was just asking who is building it. And one of my friends, she posted like, hey, I don't know if that's a good idea. There's these people who are really good at building out high level. Maybe you should use them. Tag the person who runs that company. And they were like, yeah, I wouldn't do it because this and this. If you don't know what you're doing, you could like fuck it up in whatever way. If you need any help, I was like, cool, thank you. And I'm looking at it and I go, well, for someone who hasn't been working in like CRMs and email systems and building websites their whole life, yeah, it probably is like you're going to waste a bunch of time doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it's worth learning how to do it, because I don't want to wait for someone else. I don't want to like have to get on a discovery call. I don't want to have to explain to them what I want to do. I don't want to have to rely on them to, and then wait the weeks it's going to take for them to even start the project. And then if I want to change something, who do I have to call? I have to call the agency. I'm like, you know what? It's better just to learn it myself. And so,
Agency.
yeah, I have agency. So it's, again, you know, you got to like figure out, you know, you could just, somebody was asking me the other day of like, where do you see this going? I go, you're either going to learn how to use it yourself and get in the practice of learning how to interact with AI in order for it to do what you want, or you're going to pay someone else to do it. And it's only going to get easier and more powerful from here. So might as well engage with it now instead of waiting. And so I say that, but I'm also the person to come in and get paid to advise people on how to do it.
Yeah.
But my perspective is I'll come in and I'll do stuff for somebody. I'll educate them on how to do it. I'll guide them through it. But my hope has always been in any of my consulting I've ever done is I want you, I know that I've done a good job when you've got a handle on this and you don't need me anymore.
Yeah.
And
your wheels are off.
Time
your hands off the bike.
I'm learning so much so fast that like I'm always going to have something to offer those people. But I think that just like anything, get a coach. If you want to get good at something, the fastest way to get there is to hire someone to help that knows more than you do to help you get there. And you're going to learn a lot faster.
I love that. And like you mentioned, this stack that you just shared, by the time this airs, if folks are listening, it probably changed. But it's a start, because what I see there is the thought process. And I'm so glad you mentioned about using one platform to prompt the other, because I started doing that. And what I'm hearing from you is the main focus on understanding the use cases and the origins and really the capabilities of each platform and each model and what it can do and what it's good at. And when you build that understanding, you, again, being the architect and putting all the pieces together, you're able to really craft, I would say, the pieces on the chessboard. You can build out your approach, your strategy, and then your plan of attack. And then you can deploy the proper tools, the knight, the rook, the bishop, in the proper order in order to get the outcome that you're looking for. And it's really having that forethought, starting with the end in mind, thinking multiple steps ahead, seeing how these models could play with each other, and understanding their weaknesses, understanding their strengths, and really knowing how it goes. So that alone is
other thing is I brought a prompt over from Grok the other day that there's a lot going on in my head. So, keeping track of it, all of it can be a bit of a challenge, but I brought a prompt over in the Claude, and it goes, that prompt is over engineered and is actually like, we've already done the first 4 things that it's asking me to do. And I think that if you just stay in one model or, one platform, then the possibility of ending up in a deep hallucinated rabbit hole is possible. And so it's good to take, one powerful platform and compare it against another, and that's, I really like the play between Grok and Claude to check my thinking, check the thinking of the other platforms. And then I'm always having Claude Opus 4.6 check the work of Manus, because Manus is so good at making things beautiful, but I want to make sure that it's also functional.
Yeah. Have you uploaded and added information about yourself and the personalization of these different models?
A little bit with ChatGPT. I did a little bit of experimentation. It tended to give me some very like pop psychology type answers, like, okay, you read fucking Malcolm Gladwell. that's not what I was looking for. I was looking for something deeper. I do have a friend who has a good amount of experience in personal development, and he's one of the few people I know that are like using AI to he's kind of a mentor to me. He's about 13 years younger, and he's the one that's like, I go and like I have a weekly conversation with him, and he updates my thinking on how to engage with AI. But he's built out. He's going to share it with me in the next day or two. But he built out a coaching skill basically that I can deploy in any platform I want. And I won't tell you how he built it because he ran me through it a bit last week. But I'm gonna test it out. But I'm using like I built a personal dashboard. Everything I'm doing, like the closest I'm getting to like personal stuff is I'm building out systems. I built one out in Manus, and I'm building one out in Claude right now, where it's helping me manage my productivity. And so that's the closest thing I've used it for that I feel is helpful. And even with that, like I think I'm really excited to get my buddy's system that he's going to send over, because I think it really requires someone to sit down and spend. I think he's spent more than a month developing this. He's
Oh,
like
nice.
developing it, and he's developing it like alongside other things he's working on. So it's not like he's spending all of his time on it, but I'm really interested in interacting with his bot that he's created, because the way he told me he designed it, he thinks that it's going to be the best coach I've ever interacted with.
That's a bold statement.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it.
And he knows me well enough. We're new-ish friends. He knows a bit about my background, and he's like, okay, you're the kind of guy I want to test this, because I think it's still going to blow your mind. I'm like, all right, I'll give it a shot.
Challenge accepted. Nice. No, and I asked that because I've taken a few assessment, personality tests, Enneagrams, and understanding self. And with ChatGPT being very contextual, what I've learned and worked with, especially in the deliverables of my offer, is when you see what can be done, it's easy for you to want to do all these things. And I had to Chat GPT checked me, and I had to check myself in simplifying things. I get very enterprise level, where I have to also first start with a simpler approach to things, because I'll overwhelm myself with how my mind works. I could see a lot of overlaps. I could see a lot of crosses, and I could see a web come together. And it's, well, okay, start with this piece first and then build that massive web that you see in your head. But to your point of being also able to prevent hallucination or get down the rabbit hole in one over the other, that's where some of the cross prompting has been for me, where also it's like, hey, this platform said this, what do you think? And like Gemini or Claude will be like, oh yeah, that's an accurate assessment. And yeah, this does work a lot better. We should do away with this extra tool that will only add more headwinds to your process and to your workflow. And that's been very helpful in terms of just simplifying and streamlining things on the back end.
Yeah. I mean, I stopped using ChatGPT over a month ago. And one of the reasons was because um, I felt like what it was giving me was a bit inflated. So the opposite. So everyone's stuff is programmed differently, right? So yours challenged you. Even when I was asking it to challenge me, I felt like it was inflating some things. And I developed with ChatGPT, I developed this very, I'm not doing like personal development stuff for myself in there, but I'm like working through very philosophical ideas. So I don't know if that's what you were getting at, but I've definitely used it for that.
And this specific channel in chat and this project in chat was specifically prompted to challenge me. Like I intentionally wanted it to be disagreeable and know my flaws, know my weaknesses, and then poke and prod those. So it's been prompted in that specific focus.
Got it. Well, I was going back and forth with the ChatGPT about some pretty philosophical stuff, and about, some like creating like the next level of conversation around consciousness. And, and it was good. It was good. It really got me thinking in new ways and really expanding my perspective, and then also expanding my perspective on what was possible. And then I spent a little, like maybe a couple weeks, not full time, but here and there in multiple threads unpacking this idea. And I brought it over to Claude, and it just poked a bunch of holes in it. Not in a way that like just said it was a terrible thing, but it was like, okay, there's a hole here, a hole here, a hole there. I'm like, wow, there's a lot more work to do on this idea. And that's when Claude really got my attention, because the holes that poked in it were things that I couldn't, that I wasn't getting. I wasn't getting it from other people, because I would share this with other people in conversations. They weren't poking holes in it. These are smart people too. And I brought it to Claude, and it poked some holes in it. And after analyzing, I go, I think that the holes it's poked in this is legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually stopped using. That was kind of like a defining moment where I made a stronger switch from ChatGPT into Claude. And I know a lot of people, you can go on YouTube and find information on how to take all your context from ChatGPT and load it into Claude. And
I got it.
I purposely did not do that,
Mm-hmm.
because I realized that I've been using ChatGPT from like, day 3 of it being announced. I was like probably one of the first users on it. And I realized that sometimes the context, I would tell it to forget certain things. I'd go clear some memory, and it would still be referencing stuff that was irrelevant to me. And I didn't want to bring a lot of irrelevance into Claude. And I really wanted to use Claude purely from a professional perspective. And I wanted to leave all this philosophical stuff that I had been contemplating and going back and forth with ChatGPT. I wanted to leave it behind, and I wanted to start fresh, because if I'm philosophically sound, that's naturally going to carry over without all the garbage coming over. And so I know a lot of people have brought it over, but I personally have really enjoyed working with a clean version of Claude, and kind of leaving a lot of other stuff behind. I think ChatGPT was really good to get me to where I am right now. But if I were to use ChatGPT again, I think I would almost rather like start a new account, start fresh, and kind of see what happens from there too.
I exported my data. I haven't added it to Claude yet. It was just, it's something about like the nostalgia, like you mentioned, like past 3 years I've been using this thing. And I'm transitioning off of ChatGPT. My workflow and my habits have really left it in the back. I don't use it for really any business use case, or my general usage has been mostly focused on Gemini, but that specific prompt, and I go back to check a few things here and there. I think I exported all the data just to like nostalgia hold on to it. It was the thought of like losing it all. But I haven't done anything with it yet.
Yeah, I'd be interested in creating a project inside of Claude, and then uploading all the context from ChatGPT into the project, and then in the project instructions, just say, don't let this bleed outside of this project. This is silos only. Yeah, just silo this off. I'd be interested in that. But yeah, ChatGPT did launch Codex, and I know some people really love Codex for coding, but I've actually, I feel smarter on Claude starting fresh and keeping it very strategic all the time, where ChatGPT was so conversational. It was just, a lot of times it was just, ChatGPT helped me develop my ability to prompt, and there's just a lot of poor prompting in the history there. And I want to leave the poor prompting behind.
Leave the bad habits. I love it. Really quick, I feel like we're kind of coming towards the end of this conversation. Top 5, or let's say top 3. I know you mentioned, no, it's top 5 because you already mentioned Claude, Grok, Manus. Just for the listeners, if they wanted to jump into a few of these models, play with them, what are the top 5? And then just one piece of homework that they could take from this episode.
You know, I was playing around with more platforms and models, but I don't actually suggest that anymore. And part of it is there's so much more crossover now. So I think what I just suggested is actually just fine. I think that if you want to get into making videos, Higgsfield might be worth checking out, but I haven't used it. I really can only suggest what I'm currently using. And then, you can connect a lot of other things into your Claude. Like I connected my Canvas or my Canva in the Claude. And there's just a lot of crossover these days. So I say like, and my wife with her business, I'm getting her in the habit of relying just on Claude and basically the same stack I have. So for most, she's not necessarily building the way I'm building. So what I'm looking at is how do we create all the connectors in the Claude that she needs and just use Claude Cowork. You have to download the app on your computer in order to get access to Cowork. I see Cowork as like the interface for your entire business.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to log into Go High Level anymore. You don't have to log into Zapier or make.com. You make all those connections. There's some initial setup, but you're really like mission control is there in Claude, and Claude Cowork, I think, is where most business owners, I think that would be where you want to be doing most of your stuff. If you're building, you might want some other things, but as far as like running your business, I like Claude Cowork.
I like it. I like that.
And I don't know if I answered your question because you were asking for like 5 different models or 5 different.
You answered the question with those different platforms. I think what you gave was great, and the last was one piece of homework. And what I gathered from that was download Claude onto your platform, onto your device, onto your laptop, or if you're using a Mac or a PC, download it and start playing with it. But if you had a different one.
Yeah, there's a good video. So for the homework, I would download the Claude app, and then there's a guy, let me see if I can find his YouTube video real quick. There's a guy on YouTube that teaches how to build out your operating system. Let me see if I can find
And that's setting up the folder and like the About Me and all that and the platform.
Here it is. The name of the video is How I Use Claude Cowork to Automate 99% of My Life. And then parentheses, full guide. It's by Paul J. Lipsky. And so I can share that link. But I think that, I've basically found like a handful of people who are really good on YouTube. They have some really good how-tos. This is the only video I've watched from this guy, but I feel like I wish I would have discovered. I mean, he had this video up after I was using Claude Cowork, but I think if I had started with that video, it's a 30-minute video, and just followed the instructions he gave in that video, my folder management would be a lot cleaner right now. It's a little messy.
I hear that. And that's where I've been doing the research. And how do I implement this in a clean and effective way to, like you mentioned, so I don't have to go back and clean everything up in the past. There's a lot more conversations to be had in this space. But like you mentioned, for anybody who's on the fence, it's almost like we're never going to be this young again. It's never going to be this new again. It's never going to be this new again. So don't miss out on this opportunity. I wrote a couple handwritten notes in terms of the people who will win right now are the entrepreneurs, those with agency, those who are thinking like engineers, those who are applying the AI in an effective way and how to implement the use case for one specific task. Start there. If you're overwhelmed by everything AI can do, start using the tool in an effective way for you. And as you get familiar with the tools, then you'll see other things that you could use with it as well. Um, I love it when you said this, man. You said if you feel inspired to do something, sometimes it's just best to just jump in and do it. A lot of folks are probably looking at AI. They feel that inspiration. They have that hint. Just jump in on the deep end. The water's fine. And then understanding the platforms to use. Think like an engineer. Grok 4.20, Claude Opus 4.6, Manus, Manus, and what they are best used for and how you can use them to help each other with prompt. Grok being sourced through X, where all the engineers are. I would love to know where the source comes from. Reddit. That's what I've really loved with Gemini. Deep Research pulls a lot of Reddit data. So Reddit's another area that I'm like really like interested in terms of learning prompts and learning from some of the best minds. So, but understanding those sources as well in how you approach your prompting, because the quality of your results based on the quality of your answers, the quality of the work based on the quality of your prompts. And as you prompt better, you get better outcomes. And then continuing to learn, download the Claude app on your computer, on your device. Watch the video by Paul J. Lipsky on how I use Claude Cowork, because as you learn these things, start to implement them. And as we've said in previous episodes, behavior is intelligence. Intelligence isn't intelligence. It's the behavior of what you do with it. And that's what's truly going to change your world, your life, and help you build a stack that's going to continue to echo into the years to come as AI becomes the wave that's going to become a tsunami. So go ahead and ride it. We'll be here with you. Be sure to check out the Full Stack community. If you just want to get some snippets, some updates, and of course, some information on AI, how it's being used, Mike is in there sharing some of the use cases. You wouldn't be disappointed. We'd love to have you in there. But until next time, catch you guys later. Stay stacked.